technique. It can be kind of overwhelming sometimes. It can feel like, what should I practice and all these notes and how do I learn all the keys and how much time should I really spend on it? Well, I'm gonna tell you, as a piano player, technique is one of the most important things for you to practice because it's what's gonna set you apart and make you amazing at the piano. It'll make you faster, it'll give you more control in your fingers. It's what's gonna make you stand out in a crowd. So in this video, we're going to make piano technique easy. I'm gonna teach you how to practice, what to practice, and I'm gonna give you something that's gonna enable you to play in every single key signature. So let's dive in. Okay, so first things first, to make piano technique easy on you, we have a downloadable circle of fifths. Now don't cry or run away or scream because you hate the circle of fifths. I'm not gonna teach you how to use this other than to make your piano technique easy. You don't have to draw one. You don't have to understand the grand mysteries of the circle. All you gotta do is print it, place it on your piano or on your wall in your practice space, and this actually holds like the ingredients to every single key signature. So to make it easy on ourselves, we're gonna look at this and we're gonna see that we have C major at the top. In C major, there's no sharps or flats. So that means when you're practicing your technique in this key, you're gonna play all white keys. If you are comfortable with C major and you wanna learn a more complicated key, you can move your way down clockwise or counterclockwise in the circle, and they get a little bit more complicated the further in you go. So in a key like A major, you look at that and you go, okay, I have 3 sharps. So instead of stressing about like, oh, what are the notes of A major? You can look at that and go, okay, well, the sharps are F sharp, C sharp, and G sharp. So I'm gonna start my scale on A, and every time I hit F, I'm gonna play a sharp. Every time I hit G, I'm gonna play a sharp. And every time I hit C, I'm gonna play a sharp. So then it's all white keys, except for those 3. It's so much easier when you think about it that way. In a scale, you have 8 notes. That's it. Those are your ingredients. That's what you're working with. So once you figured out what those 8 notes are, and they're technically 7 because you play the bottom note again at the top, that's all you have to worry about. So rest easy. You can learn how to play in any key signature using this information. Okay, when you're practicing your technique, to keep it really simple, you want to focus in a couple areas. So let's play around today in the key of, let's play around with D. So I'm gonna look at D on my circle of fifths, and I see I've got an F sharp and a C sharp. Okay, great. So I'm going to start on D, and remember, anytime I play F, it's sharp, anytime I play C, it's sharp. So my ingredients are white keys, except for those 2 black ones. Boom. I'm already rocking and rolling with a D major scale. Now, depending on where you are in your learning journey, you might be playing right hand or left hand or hands together. The most important thing to think about to get the most bang for your buck when you're practicing your scales is to not go into autopilot. Like, okay, I'm gonna do my D scale 10 times. Well, those 10 times are not all very useful if you're on autopilot. It would be more effective for you to practice the scale 5 times, really, really focused. So maybe the first time you play it, you're focused on playing it softly. The second time you play it, you're focused on playing very evenly at a moderately loud tempo. The third time you play it, one hand is staccato and one hand is legato. Whatever it is, find ways to think about and play your scale slightly differently each time so that your brain is actively engaging with what you're doing. Another great idea is to accent a different note each time. Now I'll accent the second note. Now I'll accent the third note. So I'm really having to think about what I'm doing. So less time, more result. Second item, triads, inversions. These used to stress me out. Oh my goodness. So I was like thinking about what are the notes? But the beautiful thing about triads and chords is that there are only 3 notes and they keep repeating themselves. So if you're practicing your D major key signature, find D, build, I call it like a claw shape. So you play a note, skip a note, play a note, play a note, skip a note, play a note, skip a note, play a note. So for this one, because F is sharped in this key, we're gonna have an F sharp. These are our 3 notes. They repeat. We don't have to think about it. All we have to think about is moving the bottom note to the top and playing the bottom 2 notes now, middle 2 notes on the bottom note on the top. Same 3 notes. We're gonna do it again. This guy's gonna go up here. We're gonna do that again. This guy's gonna go up here. Takes some coordination, takes practice. These are hard, but when you're remembering you only have 3 notes to worry about, so much easier. Same thing with the left hand, and you can play them separately or together. There is a download for this lesson that's going to include all of the fingers the finger numbers for these triads, for the scale. So you can look at that if you need to, because you should definitely have the fingering patterns memorized. And the sheet music will help you with that. And remember to apply the same thing that you did to the scale here. Once you've got those shapes and you're moving comfortably, find different ways to play these every time so that your brain is engaging and you're not going into autopilot mode. Autopilot is our worst enemy because it's kind of almost like wasted time. Yeah, you're probably developing some muscle memory, but when you're actively engaged with the task you're doing, those like neural pathways, it's like you're climbing a mountain and you're building a trail. When you're on autopilot, you're just walking the path. But when you are like actively engaging, it's like you got your machete and you're like making the trail, right? So it's more effective. And then when you go back later, you're gonna have a stronger connection to what it is that you're trying to do. And then the final thing for technique is arpeggios. And these are beautiful, by the way, to practice. So an arpeggio, again, just uses 3 notes. We use D, so we're gonna use that chord shape we were practicing for our inversions, and we're gonna play 1, 2, 3, and then 5. I got the pedal down to make it sound prettier. That's an arpeggio. If you wanna make it 2 octaves, 1, 2, 3, tuck, repeat the pattern. Left hand can do 5, 3, 2, 1, up and over with a 3, 2, 1. You can play hands together, you can play hands separately. You can play like a nice bass note of D here. Whoa, isn't that sounding pretty? So that's your arpeggio practice. That's fun, that's beautiful, it's engaging. And again, try to do it a little differently every time. Play with those dynamics to make it really, really count, and you've got your arpeggios done. So that's the 3 elements of a technique practice. You've got your scale, you've got your triads, and you've got your arpeggios. And of course, there's more that you can do. But let's just keep it simple, right? Piano technique made easy, and work on those things. So you can pick any key you'd like using the circle of fifths. I've stayed on one key signature as long as a month before. Some of them are really challenging under the fingers, and that's okay. I've spent as little as a week on some key signatures. You also have the minor keys written in along with the major ones. So if you looked at that D scale we were just playing, just under it in the circle, you'll see a B with an M, B minor. That's the relative minor. If you want to add that into your practice, please do. It's the exact same notes as the D scale. The key signature is the same, but now you start on B instead of D. Gives the scale, I guess starts on a different finger here, we'll talk about that in a second. No, it doesn't. It's normal. I just lost my mind for a moment. But we will talk about what to do if the normal scale fingering doesn't work. Same notes, different order. And you can use that same claw shape, the same rules for your ingredients. You've got 2 sharps, F sharp and C sharp, the B minor triads, 3 notes. You've also now got your arpeggio notes, and that's how you can integrate the minor. So you might practice major one day, minor the other day, major the next day, back and forth, or you might do them all in one, depending on how much time you have. The final thing I wanted to talk about briefly was the finger pattern. So when I was learning to play scales, like it was you had to follow the fingering. Most scales go 1, 2, 3, tuck, right? Standard scale fingering. But some of them, that doesn't work. For example, let's look at B flat. If we play B flat major using normal, like that just doesn't feel good to me. You have to do this tuck and it's just awkward. So you can look up like the traditional fingerings, or you can play with it. If the one's not working good for you, start with your 2. 2, 1, 2. That feels awesome. That's the wrong note. That felt awesome for me. So that's the fingering I'll go with when I practice that. So that's a little trick. If the thumb doesn't work, start with your 2nd or your 3rd finger and see how that goes. And when it comes time to sort of replace and reset the hand, you can tuck with the thumb. I'm going to play the scale right this time. And the same thing kind of goes with the left hand. So again, does this work with my left? Actually, that feels fine. So if we picked a different complicated scale, I do complicated because it's only complicated until you've learned it. So let's try B minor. B minor does not feel good for me with standard fingering. Like I just messed that up. It doesn't feel great. So I might start this one with my 4. That to cross over because I ran out of fingers. That might not be ideal. So I'll try something different. 4, 3, 2, 1, 4. 3, 2, 1. So instead of crossing over with my 3, I crossed over with my 4. This does take some trial and error. So inside Pianote, we have Piano Technique Made Easy, which includes the recommended fingerings for all of the scales. You can absolutely use resources like that to help you learn the finger patterns. I'm a really big fan of sort of like playing with different options to find what feels best and what feels smoothest. It's okay if your comfort level with a certain finger pattern is different from what's been shown in the books, as long as you can move through your scale smoothly and efficiently without like your arms flapping around or your fingers having to do crazy things, and you can stay on tempo and you're not like straining or hurting yourself as you get through them, you're fine. So that was a little aside into the world of finger patterns for the scales. The main things that I really wanted to leave you with here are that piano technique's important. You should definitely spend time with it every day. 10 minutes, 15 minutes is ideal, up to 30 minutes. There was a time I was practicing technique an hour a day. You don't have to do that. 10 minutes will make a difference, I promise. So practice it. Secondly, print that circle of fifths. It gives you the ingredients for all of the key signatures. Use those. And then practice your scales, your triad inversions, and your arpeggios. And remember, once you have your ingredients for whatever it is you're looking at, whether it's the technically seven notes of your scale, or the 3 notes that get repeated for your arpeggios and your triads, focusing on those, and the rest just comes down to practice. So happy practicing, and I'll see you next time.